You're listening to Generation AI
from Live Person.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Generation AI. I am Ruth Sive, and I am so delighted today to be speaking with Jeff Maloney. Jeff is the CMO of Digital AI, and he's a true AI optimist. Jeff is very certain that robots will not be taking over the world anytime soon. So get ready to listen in to a very deep conversation about AI in marketing, DevOps, and some unexpected industries. But before I officially welcome our guest to the show, I'd like to play for him a one-of-a-kind piece of AI-generated content. Jeff, my team created this just for you. So sit back, relax, and listen to the song.
In the land where sunsets grace the sea, lies a man named Jeff on the West Coast free. A CMO with vision, bold and bright. As Digital.ai, his guiding light. With ocean's breeze and nature's song, in California's embrace, he belongs. Through digital realms, he charts the way, where innovation and DevOps sway. Customer journeys, he'll navigate. With insights keen, he'll elevate. Hoarding his hands, the brand will soar. A beacon bright on the digital shore. So let us raise a toast today to Jeff Maloney's bright array, innovation's captain, strong and true. With AI by his side, they'll break through.
Wow. Innovation's captain. What did you think of that?
Bold and bright. I love it. It's going to be like my personal hype man.
There you go. Well, we will make sure to get that song into your hands, and that can be your ringtone on your phone or something.
I love it.
It's pretty funny. We've been playing these for all of the guests, and it's sort of it's cringy, but it's also kind of cool that the AI can do it. It's a good way to tee up our conversation today. So welcome to the show, Jeff. I did give you a very quick introduction. Of course, we had the song, but for our listeners' benefit, just share with everyone a quick summary of your background, how you came into this world of AI, and maybe just share with us what your earliest recollection of AI is.
Yeah. And thanks for having me, Ruth. And hello, everybody. My background has been all around enterprise software. I've had various roles in enterprise software, a lot of it in large organizations like Oracle or CA or BMC, but more recently in more mid-sized organizations at Digital.ai. I have cut my teeth in software at Oracle, where I was building some of the first mobile applications that we had in the CRM space. Realized that I'm probably not best designed to build products. I'm probably more designed to talk about the value that products offer. So in essence, I went into the marketing positions, and now I'm the CMO of Digital.ai, leading a fantastic team of marketers to help position our solutions into market. And we love everything AI.
That's great to hear. And I'm excited to have a CMO peer on this podcast. We can talk marketing together. What is your earliest memory of AI?
It would be, do you remember the movie Maximum Overdrive? Had Emilio Estevez. We won't date ourselves by saying...
That's my generation. I definitely remember Emilio Estevez.
I would say that is my earliest memory of AI. In essence, what happens is the machines take over, right?
That's right.
It's kind of like
That's
a pre-Terminator, that Terminator time frame. So if I had to pick my first recollection of AI, that would be it.
That's so funny, because when I've asked people not of my generation, I suspect we're probably of a similar generation, if not the same generation. Their memories are so different. They're so much more current. And, my earliest memory is just of the robot, with the square boxes trying to, like you said, take over the world. That's sort of my memory, my frame of reference. Okay, well, moving away from your earliest memory, I know that Digital AI has really been unlocking the power of AI since day one. You said you love all things AI. But in the last 6 months in particular, there has been this big bang caused by ChatGPT. I'd love to hear from your perspective, what do you think of all of that? And, it's everywhere. You sort of can't escape the noise. What's your frame of reference? What's your perspective on what's happened in the last 6 months, and particularly how it relates to the work that you're doing at Digital AI?
Yeah, we love the recognition of AI, ChatGPT, co-pilots, everything that really is helping people deliver and develop software more efficiently. And this we've kind of been in it for a lot longer than 6 months is the thing. We've always had a really pretty strong position at AI at our business, obviously having .ai in our name. And we do several things in the world. And the most recognizable aspect that we do around AI, have a history around, is helping people get predictive intelligence on the information and insights that they have for software development and delivery. Our business help people develop software. We capture a lot of information at all those phases of software delivery, from the time you got to plan something, to test it, to secure it, to put it in a production environment. And we've been running machine learning models on top of all that information to help people be more predictive in the software that they're delivering, to remove bottlenecks, to manage risk, and just help a manager make a more decisive decision of what they need to do all across software development and delivery, from head of engineering to head of QA to CISOs and those individuals.
So that's interesting because, I also work at a company that's been in the AI space for some time. I'm at LivePerson, and we've been very much about automation and AI and machine learning for many years now. So like you, this wasn't new to us in the last 6 months, but now the whole world seems to be about AI. So how do you, especially as a marketer, how do you cut through the noise? How do you distinguish what's real from the hype?
Yeah. It's very hard, to be honest, when you look at a lot of information that's being put out there by a bunch of vendors like ours that say, here's everything AI. It's like, what actually is AI and what isn't AI? And the response that we get is like, oh, you have real AI. It's like, right? That's
Thank you. Versus the fake AI.
The fake AI, exactly. I think it's really about, to cut through the hype, you've got to understand, as an organization, is the individual that you're talking to providing a real valid use case that's solving a problem with the help of certain AI concepts. And now AI is a very broad, definition, as you understand. There's everything from natural language processing to large language models to co-pilots, whatever it is. You've really got to understand, okay, I have a particular problem as a consumer or as a business. Is AI, the real components of AI and concepts of AI, helping me solve that? If so, how is it happening? So you got to dig into the use case by being like, we've got this AI thing, fantastic, great.
I love that. We operate in very different segments of the market, targeting different stakeholders, but we talk a lot about business outcomes at LivePerson. So, if the AI isn't fueling a business outcome, then it's sort of not of interest to our target market. And so, that's the real life application that we try to have in mind, or that I try to have in mind as I market it. So it sounds like you're doing basically the same.
Yeah, and you get the reaction that way. It's people gloss over when you use all this gobbledygook and you know it better than anybody. But when you can say, hey, I'm actually managing risk X, Y, and Z, or I'm helping you accelerate software delivery through X, Y, and Z, people get it, because those are problems that they have, managing risk and being more efficient or cost effective or whatever it is. And if you can apply the concepts in human terms on how it solves the problem, light years ahead of where everybody else is, and just kind of using a lot of jargon that's describing something that we've probably honestly been doing for the past couple of decades.
For sure. So I used to be CMO for a company that sold an agile planning solution. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's how we met back when you were at CA. So I've been watching agile evolve and creep into other lines of business for quite a while now. And even as a marketer, on my teams, we run sprints, we have stand-ups, we manage a backlog. So I was interested in Digital AI's latest State of Agile report. And especially, I thought it was really interesting that it concludes that leadership is what's really hindering the success of Agile is, misses on the leadership front. And that's the case 40% of the time, that, your leadership is really what drives this forward. So I'm wondering why you think that's the case, and how AI tools are going to be able to help in that regard going forward.
It's really about, why is leadership still sort of a bottleneck in the ability for organizations to be iterative and agile? So, and I look at it as this sense. It's a lot of organizations, at least in the enterprise space, which is probably where you or I have more of the background, is if you look at their business models, they've been in business for 20, 40, 50, 100 years. And their way their businesses are structured might not adapt to an iterative way that teams are delivering whatever good or service, that they're delivering, whatever division that they happen to be in. So oftentimes I find that the structure of an organization is structured in a typical HR hierarchy kind of way that doesn't meld or mesh with an agile style, which is more team-based and taking individuals from all these parts of the company to move something forward. So sometimes you have leaders that grow up in these hierarchy perspectives and they don't always understand that team goal of moving quickly, getting all these various inputs and changing over time just because of the way that they've grown up in an organization. So that's where I personally think that the leadership bottlenecks come from. Is just a past history of how organizations have been structured and how we've kind of learned to grow up within organizations. Now, 10 years from now, it's going to be drastically different. 20 years is going to be drastically different because the newer generations are going to be leading up those organizations, or there's going to be newer organizations that, start today that are going to be large organizations 10 years from now that come from this more iterative and agile mindset.
Do you think that AI can accelerate that change management? And if so, like what role does it stand to play?
I think AI is the key is, to me, it's two things. Is we're in businesses that really are about automation of some sort of previous manual thing that used to happen. So I think AI is only going to add fuel into that automation to make the system much more efficient is number one. So I think that's where AI is going to play, is just power those automations that exist, right? 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we were on carbon copy. Now we have a computer to do certain things. That's only getting better through automation. The second part is the insights that you're getting. Is we have so much information these days that, great, I kind of know my point and place here, but a lot of times we talk to companies, I don't have the insights of the information that you're giving me. I don't really get the static dashboard or this report that I'm getting through Tableau or Excel or whatever it is. So I think AI in that predictive aspects is going to be able to take a lot more information that we can consume today and put it in a predictive stance to help somebody make a trade-off decision, which is really what management's all about, right? Is to kind of say option A or option B.
So, Jeff, it's interesting what you say. We talk a lot about how the LLMs are likely to become commoditized, and really the true value comes from the data that's powering those LLMs and the extent to which you're able to tap into that data, leverage the LLMs to sort of surface actionable insights. And it sounds like what you're saying is that in so doing, the extent to which you can actually surface those insights to inform better decision-making so that teams can take action more iteratively, it almost arms the leadership with the information that they need to have at their fingertips and accelerates that change management. Is that a fair way of stating it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's, to add on to that, it's going to have to be off data sets that are models learned from that particular instance or that business or whatever problem you're solving. So I think you're going to see a massive increase in sort of these AI gardens, right, that are just fencing off a particular enterprise's set of data that they're going to be able to learn from versus some of the open source stuff that's really
Totally agree. So along those same lines, I know that digital AI has a bespoke solution for government. And that's really interesting to me as a marketer because I've tried to market and sell into the public sector, and no surprise, government tends to be very slow moving. They're often the last to adopt new technologies. So how did digital AI break into that industry? And from your perspective, what are some of the challenges within government that you think can be that AI can be used to solve?
Yeah. I think we've always had a pretty good mix in Fed SLED, that sort of government space, in the States or around the globe, whatever that federal space happens to be called. Where I see that, oddly enough, I think the government space gets a bad rap. It's actually, I've seen government agencies or public sector area move faster a lot of times than private sector. And it's so easy to pick on the government. Like, I'm not getting my services. I go to the DMV or whatever, and it takes me 10 hours. These guys, right? But I've seen a very focused group of individuals in these areas that we work with, and they kind of know what they're looking for right away, and they kind of put the blinders on and really focus on solving that particular problem, which is a blessing, but it also might be a little bit of a curse, right? So I see individuals in this space being able to adopt technology because they can see how that technology is really transforming their business. Because you can see it's probably one of the last sectors to maybe transform and adopt technology, like private sector or like the private sector has. So the area that we really focus on a lot is how there's planning aspects. You mentioned earlier the agile planning. We see a lot of these organizations adopt agile planning practices, right? How can they manage their portfolios within every space that they happen to be? Where are those funds being delivered? Are those funds actually serving the greater good? Is it aligned to the business strategy or the government strategy? And then how are we organizing teams around those particular portfolios to execute on whatever service that they happen to be offering?
I love that. That inspires in me a much greater sense of confidence around government and innovation. So that's great to hear. I have to ask you, I know you've been sort of in this DevOps, agile planning space for a lot of years, but you did have a prior role, a stint in the world of ITSM. And I just, it strikes me, it's really interesting to watch AI and automation kind of creep across the organization. We've talked about the applications for dev, for government. What are some of those internal use cases that you think will be most impacted by AI?
The internal use cases from an IT perspective, it goes really back into the data, but then probably more importantly is if you look at IT, they're really solving problems, I should say. And I think where we're seeing a lot of really good AI use cases goes back into the data, saying based on past history, when we recognize patterns of a similar problem or a similar incident, what happens, terminology that they're using, is it's feeding up an individual. Here is the resolution to this particular problem much faster than ever before. And whether that's a response that a human gives to another human, or whether it's a response of like an SRE needs to go and solve a particular problem to have a system perform better, that's really the use cases that we're seeing is the previous problems that have happened, which are large and large and large in any IT organization. They're using that to solve a problem much quicker than ever before.
And employees can self-serve in many cases on those problems and much more likely to achieve resolution with great AI.
And especially these days, it's so easy for employees to solve their own problems because we're more technologically inclined. We have the tools to go find our own problems. It's these complex problems where you've got to get an individual or a team of individuals to really figure out what is the issue at hand. That's where AI is solving a massive problem much faster.
Well, it's also freeing up the humans. If AI is solving these sort of common, repeated problems across the organization, it frees up the humans to address the ones that are more complex, that require a higher touch.
Yeah, and AI ops is the kind of the space that it's in, and that's just being the predictive, sort of like we predict risk that software being delivered into market. AI ops is saying, hey, you're going to potentially have a problem in your environment when you wake up tomorrow and go into the office, right?
Got it. And then as a marketer, I'm curious, I have to ask you, are you integrating AI into your organization? What are you experimenting with? What are you most concerned about? How are you sort of drinking your own champagne?
Yeah, most of it is around content, right? It's so easy to get into a generative AI type tool, ChatGPT, name your poison there, and give guidance on how should a good piece of content be defined. So we're seeing a lot of it as like, you know it, and your teams know it. It's hard to start something, right? It's just like, it's hard to put your thoughts on paper. But if the system could give me an outline, and then I can fill in the details of that outline, that's where we're seeing a lot of benefit and kind of a lot of interest area right now. Not necessarily creating plans or defining a campaign or coming up with snappy slogans, right? I do like the song though, but it's all about here's the definition of the problems that we have in a particular industry that you're solving for. Here's a good outline. Take it from there and then create some content.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of the same. I think we're experimenting a little bit with AI for SEO, AI for BDR outreach, and even when they do research up front about prospects, it's helping a little bit with that. But I think, content is sort of the lowest hanging fruit. And I agree with what you said, getting started, getting over that first step of getting your thoughts on paper. So what are you most excited about on the AI front, and what keeps you up at night? Because I said you're not scared that robots are taking over the world. So what is it that keeps you up at night?
There does need to be a governance layer of AI, but not in such a way that you hinder its progress, right? And being in the business that we're in, and being in a lot of large organizations that are in the financial services realm, is there has to be some sort of governance around tools that are helping either create code or, more importantly, optimize code. And are those sources of code the right sources of code that don't introduce security vulnerabilities or something bad in a production environment? So that's something we look at quite heavily. We're in the space of governance, risk, and compliance for a lot of large organizations around the world. And it's such a new territory that AI is influencing the development organizations. Is they have a responsibility to us as consumers to make sure that these environments are safe and sound. And so the AI governance at a level that doesn't hinder creativity and innovation, I think, is that fine line, that balance of what we see organizations trying to adopt and what we're trying to help with. So that's. Do
you worry about diversity and ethical standards as they're reflected even within code?
Yeah. The legal aspects, the ethical aspects, the security aspects of it, for sure. And how are those models trained on what should be the right models to train on versus something that nobody has experience with? That is the problem that you see.
Yeah, I guess that's precisely, if I ask you the flip side of the question, what are you most excited about? It's interesting how you talk about like the governance and the security and the guardrails, if you will, but not to the extent that it inhibits innovation. Is it the innovation that you're most excited about? Like what is it that makes you feel the most bullish about this technology?
Yeah. It's just the creativity and the innovation. I look at it, we have these conversations around governing AI, and I go back to, what if we govern the internet quite heavily? Right? Like you kind of hear paranoia in media. AI is the robots are going to kill everybody. So let's get governments and, whatever institutions involved, put a stop to it, right? And governance. Like, what if we did that to the internet? What if we did that to mobile phones? So you could have a serious problem of hindering creativity and innovation. And that's the most exciting piece, is let individuals run with it, see what's going to happen, but put a cautious eye to it. I'm not saying go crazy, but definitely, let it go. Just make sure we're doing the right things from ethical, legal standards perspective.
Yeah, it strikes me that this isn't a new dilemma. I think whenever we're on the verge of some real innovative breakthrough throughout history, there's always this tension between keeping people safe and allowing enough latitude and freedom for creativity and expression and innovation. So exciting to be living in this time. We wrap up these podcasts with the same question every time. I love this question. I want you to share with us, what is one thing in your life that you would love to be able to automate? And what is one thing that in your life that you would never, ever want to automate?
What I would love to automate is my schedule and tell me the things I should focus on and priorities. What I would never automate is the time I get to spend with my wife and two little girls. That would be the thing that I want to keep technology and automation and all this AI stuff away from as much as possible.
Yep, you're not the first guest who has shared that answer on what you would never automate. And I have a feeling, Jeff, that what you would like to automate, your schedule, I feel like there's probably already a tool out there for that. You should go searching, because that seems like something that's possible already. I'm going to look for it and send it your way. Or if one of our listeners knows of such a tool, you should reach out to Jeff and share it with him. Jeff, it was so wonderful to have you on the podcast. Share with our listeners where they can find you or where they can learn more about digital AI.
To find me, I'm always on LinkedIn. Please do reach out. Very active, love to connect and find new sources of friends, new sources of information. And to find digital.ai, you can go on digital.ai, and there's a whole section on AI and how we position ourselves to solve the world's problems around AI. So feel free to read it on digital.ai.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. And to all of our listeners, Please make sure that you subscribe to Generation AI so that you don't miss out on our next episode and you can listen to our prior episodes. You can do that wherever you would listen to your podcasts. And until next time, thank you so much for listening. And Jeff, such a pleasure.
Thank you, Ruth. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Generation AI,
Automating Better Business,
a show from LivePerson.
Never miss an episode by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share the episodes you love. Until next time.